Good morning. Welcome to Meet the Masters of Insurance webinar series. I'm Lawrence Geller, the founder of For Advisors Only. This is the 16th of what we expect to be a great many webinars with Canadians who've dedicated their careers to learning the art and science of insurance sales and service. Webinars in this series are now scheduled through the end of this year, and more are being added to the schedule daily. Over the years, I've observed that every successful insurance agent who I've met has succeeded differently, even if they're in the same field, deal with similar clients, and even if they're related or in business together. This is what makes the sale and servicing of insurance one of the best careers that I can imagine. It's possible to become a success in our business with diligence, integrity, and experience. With this webinar series, we intend to prove that any type of person can succeed in insurance with time and hard, thoughtful work. Our goal is to create a video record for each of these masters of insurance so that some of their expertise and experience will be available to anyone who'd like to learn from them, whether now or in the future. Today, we have Michele Wilson with us. Michele became the third generation of her family to enter the insurance industry in 1984. Her business focuses mainly on financial and retirement planning for her clients, offering a variety of products and services to meet their growing needs. Michele has been a member of Advocis, originally the Life Underwriters Association Canada, since 1987, and has served in many volunteer roles, including president of her local chapter in Toronto. A life and qualifying member of MDRT since 1989, based on production in her first full year in the business, and she's been a member of CALU since its inception. Michele served on the Chapter Leadership Council for Advocis and the TFAAC Board. Michele also served many years on the Audit and Finance Committee for North York General Hospital and has done many other volunteer activities. She's widowed with 2 daughters and a stepson and 1 grandchild. Julian Wise, will be interviewing Michele. We have now booked webinars through the end of this year. Please let us know if there's anyone who you think we should interview, and we'll add them to the list of people to speak with. Thank you. Over to you, Joe.
Thanks, Lawrence. Michele, thanks for participating in this. It's wonderful of you.
Thanks for asking me.
Michele, how did you get started in this business? Why don't we start there?
Well, Julian, I was actually born into this business. As Lawrence said in the introduction, I'm third generation. I'm third generation on both sides of my family. My maternal grandfather was a branch manager for Sun Life. I had an uncle who was an advisor for Sun Life. My paternal grandfather was an advisor for Canada Life. My father joined him in 1956, and I came in after that. But growing up, I mean, we didn't really talk about the business around the dining room table, but you observe what your family does in the business. And I was never, ever, can't be more emphatic, coming into this business. This business was too hard. You had to work too many hours. I wanted an easy life, right? The phone always rang at, Christmas Eve, and my dad never seemed to be able to take vacation because he was always working. And I'm like, no, that's not for me. Nope, not doing that. So, but over time, I learned never say never.
So when did you seriously start in the business?
Well, a couple of things. I graduated from Queen's in 1982 with a Bachelor of Commerce degree. In 1982, Canada was in a recession, a very deep recession. The unemployment rate in Kingston, where I was living, was 20%. And so I did a lot of things and didn't really like any of them. So I learned what I didn't like to do. My husband was, oh yeah, I also got married 2 weeks after I graduated. My husband was transferred to Vancouver. And again, I did some temp stuff. We came back to Toronto. I did a little bit of work for my dad. I kind of went, it's kind of intriguing. And then we were transferred back out to Vancouver again. And this time it was like, okay, well, we're out here for 2 years, so I better go and get a job. And I answered an ad in the paper for a person with computer skills. Now, in 1982, we were dealing with, I think we might have had hard drives in our PCs. But before that, it was like a floppy disk or then a dual floppy disk and dial-up internet. So I actually had computer experience because my dad was a tech geek at the time. And so I answered this ad, went in, had sort of a resume, but I did have the computer skills. And I was hired. And that company happened to be Paul Revere Brokerage in Vancouver. Now, for the new advisors who may have never heard of Paul Revere, they were a disability specialty carrier that is now owned by RBC Insurance. So I started doing that. I was working basically as the opposite, doing office admin, preparing quotes. I learned everything about the disability products that Paul Revere had to offer. And brokers would call and I would tell them what they should do. You know, this is the income level that people qualify for, and this is the occupational category that they are, and all of that stuff. So I learned the disability business cold. And then we got transferred back to Toronto, and Paul Revere in Toronto didn't have any job openings. So I'm going, okay, jobless again. But the timing that I came back, the $1 Million Roundtable at the time was during their family meeting in Orlando. Hey, I'm family, right? So I got in the car with my parents. They were driving, and my sister, and we went to the MDRT meeting in Orlando in 1987 or 1986. And I met like presidents of companies. You know, I'm out there, I'm going, I'm jobless, like, give me a job, right? I got home and there was a phone call waiting for me to go and work for a company also now owned by RBC, Constellation at the time, which became Unum while I was working for them, doing exactly what I'd been doing before at Paul Revere, but with a different product line. And about 6 months into it, I sat there and I went, I'm bored. What am I gonna do? I'm bored. And I put in for a transfer within Constellation to go to the group department. And that was vetoed. Don't ever do that to me. Don't veto me on anything. I got a little bit pissy. So I went to my dad. I called my dad up and I said, you know, Dad, can I buy you lunch? Kids never buy their dad's lunch. Julian, when was the last time somebody bought you lunch? So I called him and I said, you know, do you think that I could do what you do? And he said, well, I don't know, maybe, you know, I'll set up an interview with my branch manager and he will, you know, I'm not going to hire you. You're not going to do it with me. You have to do it on your own. But let's see, we'll put you through the steps and, you know, do the Project 100 and get your life license and all that stuff. So basically that's what I did. And I signed my life contract with Canada Life May 31st, 1987.
Wow. And when did you, what did you do from then? Like, who were your prospects? Who were your clients? What were you helping them buy?
Oh, so who are my prospects. So, you know, you have to do the project 100, like, so you write down a list of, you know, 100 people, friends and family. And I'm sitting here going like, okay, family was out because if they needed insurance of any description, my father already had them in his client base. So that didn't work, but, you know, and my friends didn't have any money, but, you know, typical person starting out in the industry, you know, but I phoned all of those people that I knew and had interviews with a lot of them. Um, but I got a referred lead. I was really excited about it. I got this referred lead to somebody that my husband worked with. And he says, well, you know, this guy's, you know, married, he's got kids. He was a lot older than my husband indicated that he was. But anyway, he was the president of a company. And I picked up the phone and I called him and I told him who I was. And he says, oh, so you're calling about my group benefits. And I went, I'm calling about your what? I was like, are we going to hop into being a licensed advisor? There's no training on group insurance. So I go, I get all excited. I book an appointment. I go running up to my dad. I said, I have this appointment with this guy, but he wants to talk about group benefits. I don't know anything about group benefits. Teach me about group benefits. Go with me, do this. Well, of course, it's June now, it's roundtable. So he's off to roundtable. So he said, I'm not here. And my, he says, but I'll bring in my group rep to help you. And the group rep also couldn't go to the meeting. So I go into this meeting, sit down with the guy, ask for a tour of his operation, look at the, you know, what they do. They did circuit boards. And I'm wandering around and I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, this is great, but I'm supposed to be getting an aid in a record letter and I'm supposed to be getting the group census data. I'm supposed to be doing all that stuff. That didn't happen in that meeting. But what I did figure out was this guy was an avid golfer. So I arranged for him to play golf with my dad. We got the case. I had to do a 50-50 commission split, but as I learned then, 50% of something is better than 50% of nothing. And always go with somebody who's got more expertise than you do.
Good advice.
So my dad did take this nice gentleman out for a round of golf and had dinner with his wife, my mom and his. I didn't get to go to dinner. And 2 weeks later, they're playing golf again. And I'm going, well, are we going to get it? He says, I don't know. But we did. So yeah, so that was, so but what I learned from that was, you know, at that time we would sit, we did what we called dialing for dollars. And we would sit at night and call people because, you know, you can't call like young people at work, right? Like they can't take the call to talk to you to book an appointment. So we would do all our calls at night to book the appointments. And I didn't like that. I wanted to go home. And so I quickly learned that I wanted to work with business people and I wanted to do group. And so I ended up doing a lot of that and a lot of disability insurance and life insurance. I didn't actually do a lot of wealth management because you might remember, Julian, not everybody will, but in October of 1987, we had a stock market crash. And the little bit of wealth that I had done at that point in time, everybody wanted to redeem it. I had no idea how to stop them from redeeming it because I really didn't know enough about what I was doing. So, you know, again, I went up to my dad. I said, well, what are your clients doing? He says, my clients are doing nothing. I'm just telling them to buy more. So again, it's all about learning. You have to learn. So, you know, my clients are now much older, so they don't need so much life and DI. And so I do more of the wealth management because in our business, we protect people from dying too soon, becoming disabled, or living too long. So I'm sort of at the stage in my career where I'm helping them when they live too long. But I did when I started, it was the other two things that were really important.
Now, how long did you work alone, and when did you and your dad put a deal together? And paint a picture of that one, if you don't mind.
So yeah, I was never ever going to work with, I mean, it wasn't that I was never going to work with my dad, but my dad wanted to know that I could do the business on my own, without his support. So I worked, I worked in the bullpen. I did all that until one day my mother called me and she said, Michele, your dad is really sick. He, they don't think that he's going to live for a very long time. He had 35% lung capacity at that point in time. And my mom just said to me, if he keeps going to work every day, he's going to die. And you have to do something to help him. And I'm like, okay. And he'd been abundantly clear that I wasn't going to work with him. So, other than the first case that we did the 50-50 split on, so I said, okay, what do I have to do? So I went home, sat with my dad. I said, what do we have to do so that, we can get this done? And he said, I can't go to see the clients, but I can tell you what needs to be done. And so he would go through the client files with me. I took them all home at night. His assistant would prepare all of the stuff that needed to be done with an agenda list for me to follow. And he would call and book the meeting, and I would go to the client's house and do what needed to be done under the proviso that if it seemed to be going off the rails, I was supposed to phone him right there. Which I never had to do. And I got 10% of the commissions for doing all of that work. And that carried on until 1990. So this was about 1990. That carried on until about 1994 when we changed the commission. I decided I was working for peanuts. And we changed the commission split to a 50-50 split. We relocated our office so that we were not associated with the branch anymore and worked independently. But it took a while to get Canada Life on side with me working and being in a position to take over the company. It took us a while to get them to give the agreement that when he actually retired or died, we would that the company was mine and that the clients were mine and everything would work that way.
Why did you think it took so long?
I'm not 100% certain why the companies were balking at succession in that regard. Could have been that I just had not been in the business for long enough, but I just basically said, no, that's it. I'm going to an MGA. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I can remember being at dinner with my grandfather, who was supposedly deaf. I just say selective listening, because for some reason I got hauled into the president's office the next day because I was planning on leaving Canada Life because I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't do what's right for the clients. I can't do what's in the best interest of everybody. I'm leaving. Well, my dad sat there and he said, well, if she goes, I have to go. Now, he'd been with Canada Life at that point in time since 1956. And I said, I said, no, I can't work this way. And so, they said, well, what do we have to do? And that's what solved it. So really, my grandfather solved the problem.
Wow.
But why they were balking at it, I don't know. I really.
I'd just like all you folks to know that that her dad is 92 now, alive,
91.
91, alive. I talked to him last week, and he's going to be doing an interview for this
Yeah,
and tell his side of the story.
he'll tell his side. It's probably completely different than my side.
Michele, what helped you the most to grow in this business?
I actually think what helped me the most is the education that I got. I have what my dad would call alphabet soup behind my name. I have an FLMI, which I got while I was working with Paul Revere and Unum. I got I did my LUHEC 1, 2, and 3, but like everybody did back then. I got my CLU in 1991. I followed that doing my CHFC. I did I have my CFP. I have the TEP, and I have an FMA.
How does it all fit on your card?
It doesn't. So I kind of pick and choose depending. It doesn't, but it's not really about the alphabet soup behind my name. It's that I started off very, very early, going to the Life Underwriters meetings, and at every Life Underwriters meeting on the screen, they told you your pathway to success, and their pathway to success was education. But it wasn't just that, it was the people that I met. And in those days, the CLU courses were operated as classes. So you actually every week made a commitment to go to school to learn what you had to learn to get the designation, which introduced me to a whole lot of people who I can still call on today to ask questions and get help, and brought me into study groups, and it's really what you get from the other people in this industry. So Lawrence, again, I applaud you for doing this, is asking and talking and meeting and greeting all of those people. So like the chapter network of Life Underwriters, now Advocis, is probably what gave me all of the information that I needed. In addition to that, like very early on, my dad told me that when I got my CLU, he'd retire. That didn't happen, but that's okay. And then he sent me to $1 Million Roundtable Fast Track School, and I didn't really learn anything at $1 Million Roundtable Fast Track School. It was just a program that they had put together that was supposed to fast track an advisor to $1 Million Roundtable production status. So the goal was to qualify for Roundtable in your first full year in the business. I did that. In addition to that, in 1988, I had a baby. So it's like, and my manager asked me what that did for me. And I said, well, it reaffirmed everything that I had been taught, but it had been told to me by people who were supposedly the premier in the business. And so I believed them. I didn't believe the branch manager.
Huh.
So I came back and I said, okay, everything you told me I'm supposed to do, they told me I'm supposed to do. So now I'll do it.
Good for you. Actually, I know you very well, and I've known you for a long time. And of all the people with the alphabet soups, you're the one that always has the right answer. You
No.
never guess at it.
Thank you. But I try to. If I don't have the right answer, I don't know it, I go looking for it. But that's because that's how I learn. I always want to learn, and you can't stop learning. But when I came into the business, there was no CE requirement. So it was just like, I don't know that I don't know what I'm doing. So, so you just have to keep learning.
What are
And
what are your unique abilities?
oh,
Give me 3 of them or 4 of
oh
them.
my goodness. I think that my most unique ability is that I'm very empathetic. Um, in my business, I do an awful lot of death claims. Um, I think that until you've settled a death claim in this business, you're not in this business. Um, the 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 fog that widows and widowers alike go through when somebody dies is very real. Um, we know that, getting money into their hands is the best thing that we can do to try and alleviate some of the fears that they have, whether they're rational fears or irrational fears. And I think so the empathy that I have with people who have lost a loved one is one of my unique abilities. Um, 3,
Well, you don't have to have 3, you could have 5.
I could have 5. Um, my knowledge base and my ability, I like to call it my ability to dumb it down. We talk in our industry in acronyms that nobody understands. You can throw 3 letters at me and I can go, I don't know what that means. For instance, people always, my kids, when, texting used to come out, I would say something, my kids always look at me, I write text messages in perfect sentences, with all the punctuation. And, they'd come back with the LOL and I'd go, what is that? And they'd go, well, what do you mean, Mom? What is that? She'd go, like, laugh out loud. And I'm going, yeah, to me, it's little old ladies. So, so using letters and symbols and numbers, and we may know it at the high level, but my ability is to, like, you got to talk in simple terms. And then I'm also pretty good at reading people's body language. I can watch people's eyes glaze over. And I think that has to do with the fact that my dad and I did a lot of joint work. And when one of us was talking, the other one was watching and listening. And so I could jump in and go, yeah, you lost him, because he's like sitting back, arms are crossed, he's like stiff posture, his eyes are totally glazed over, he's looking up here. You've lost him. Like, so you got to bring it back. So I'm very good at reading the crowd.
How has that all helped you as an insurance person or an insurance professional and as a person?
From well, like, I really enjoy doing joint work, actually. So I think the ability to read people, and know that, sometimes it's important, sometimes it's pretty easy to just look at it and go, okay, this is going nowhere, and I'm just going to walk away. It's not going to ever go anywhere. And then other times you can sit there and you can look at it and go, I sense that there's something else going on in your life, that maybe it would be better if you told me that rather than what my agenda was.
Yes.
So I may have come to this meeting with an agenda, but I think you need to talk to me about something else.
Huh.
And if you can get them to open up, eventually you'll get back on your own agenda. But while they're at this blocking point, you're not going to get anywhere. So if you can see that and read that, you will be able to move forward.
Wow, what an insightful comment. So what does the business look like today that's different than when you started?
Like I said, when I started, my business was, you know, like a typical advisor, I guess. We did like the $250,000 whole life sale. Um, I sold a lot of DI. CI didn't exist in our business when I joined, and now I'm a firm believer in critical illness insurance. But as my clients have aged, my oldest client right now is 102. Very much alive, paid her last insurance premium when she turned 100. She was very glad to finally be able to stop paying for insurance. My youngest client is a pandemic baby. I deal with 4 generations in families, grandparents, down to great-grandchildren. So, and each segment of the family requires different products and services. Some of them are at the stage where they just need hand-holding. But I'm going to say in February, like I'm the first phone call. I am literally the first phone call after the family for most of my clients when somebody dies. I get phone messages at 2 a.m. My mom passed away. My dad passed away, because I know them all. I know all the kids. I got 2 phone calls one day in February. The first one was from an ex-wife who we put the policy in place to protect her spousal support. She says, my husband is dying. He wasn't even dead yet. My husband is dying. What do I have to do? And is everything okay? I said, you don't have to do anything now. Just phone me when the event occurs. About an hour later, I got a phone call from a child saying, my mom is going off her medication. The doctors predict that she will pass away within the next 3 months. What do we have to do? That's the level of trust. They know you're going to do the work. And I just say, just phone me when it happens. So, not necessarily good days, but one of those individuals, we have paid the death claim. The other one is very much alive, knock on wood.
Wow. What did your business look like when you started compared to what it looks like now?
So I think that's what that really was. Now it's much more wealth management. Because like I said, it's an older block. So we're making sure that they don't run out of money. So while we sold a lot of annuities back in the day, we sort of stopped when interest rates went to nothing, ramped it up. So a lot more seg funds. My business is, I do not have a mutual fund license. I deal solely in the insurance space, with segregated funds. And I very much believe in the insurance aspect of segregated funds and what they do for families when somebody dies, especially if they die, God forbid we try to teach them, but it doesn't always work. If they die without a will, if they die shortly after they've purchased it and they have those underlying guarantees. I have paid out a lot of top-up benefits on insurance or on segregated funds. It pays out quickly, so you get liquidity. And so really it's just more money management now, because it's very hard to put insurance on a 96-year-old lady.
True.
Even though they could probably use it.
Isn't that the truth? Michele, what critical events have happened during your career that have caused you to pause and evaluate your business?
So Probably the first pivot was when my dad got sick. So I've talked about that already. The second pivot was when I got divorced in 2003. The stumbling block on that was we had two, but basically the stumbling blocks were the value of the house and the value of my business. And at that time, I owned 20% of my dad's company. 10% of it I owned before I got married. 10% of it I acquired while I was working with him. And effectively, what had to happen for my divorce sale was, or for my divorce to go through was, I needed a business valuation. I did one and he did one. I had a CBV, a certified business valuator, value the company, determine what my 20% was worth. He had his accountant do the valuation. They were miles apart in terms of the values. The agreement finally was, we'll bring in a third party that was agreeable to both of us, and that valuation, whatever it was, would be the value. It was a lot of work. I think I had to go to discovery. I think I had 77,000 documents to go before the judge who wanted me out of her courtroom. Basically, with that value on the table, my dad said, well, I'm going to do an estate freeze. The valuation's been done. I'm going to do an estate freeze. We're going to trigger and move 100% of voting control of the company over to you. That was big pause. That was good. The exercise was done. Shareholders agreements in place, everything. So that was the second thing. Probably the third, I'm going to go with the third, well, not the third event was lawsuit. Thank God for errors and omissions insurance. It takes a toll on you. I was found completely harmless. Which was good. No damage to my reputation or anything else, which is the biggest problem that you have when a client decides that you've done something wrong and you're sitting there going, what did I do wrong? I don't think I did anything wrong. But that took probably a year out of my business where you're like stressing all the time. And at the end of it, all the errors and omissions providers said, yeah, we're not renewing your errors and omissions.
Even though you were found harmless.
Yep. And so I sat there and I went, you're not doing what? And I had 2 weeks to get new errors and omissions insurance in place. And I thought I was going to be out of the business because it's not easy to do. Because we have to have it. So that was probably one of the scariest 2 weeks of my life. And I learned how quickly somebody can take away your livelihood. And then it was 5 years after that before that lawsuit kind of disappeared off of my errors and omissions record. And then the final thing that caused me to pivot and maybe to understand how hard it is for widows is when Jerry passed away last April.
Jerry was your husband.
He'd been sick for a year. I went to every medical appointment, which takes you away from work. And it takes you, thank goodness that for the most part, my business can run on autopilot. And thank goodness that my clients, for the most part, are also very understanding people, you know, kind of grandmothers and grandfathers who kind of look at me like a grandkid, who treat you with the utmost of respect, give you the ability to take time, and allow you to come back to them in short order. Because I spent at least 3 months in that fog, and just did what I call, I mean, my stepson looked at me, he's just like, "You're doing all this work. Like, why are you doing all this work?" I said, "'Cause all this work has to be done. Your father's estate has to be settled," for which the last thing was done yesterday. So
Wow.
yeah, so it takes a long time. We need to help our clients. So again, this is my pivot. We need to help our clients understand that it's important that the executor that they choose for their estate management has the skill set to deal with it. And if they don't have the skill set, that they be provided with the tools to do the job, because it's a daunting task.
What memories of Jerry will you carry with you forever?
Oh, his laugh, his love of travel, and his love of people.
Hmm.
All he wanted in the last year of his life was to spend more time with family and friends.
What a legacy. What wonderful memories.
So, yeah, great guy.
So what are your thoughts on the business and how it's changed over time, Michele?
Well, I like to think that the business is more inclusionary. I like to think that there's more, a lot more diversity in it, a lot more women in it. It's a great career, but I like to think that, so when I went in for my initial interview to join the business, and I don't think I already said this, was, you know, Michele, I was at your wedding. Don't you think it's time you went home and had babies? I don't think anybody would ask that question today. At least I like to think that you would never hear that question today. Now, I think I understand, you know, it stemmed from the fact that that's what women did back in the 80s. And we maybe gave up our careers to have children. My philosophy was always I could do both. I think I did it successfully. You know, I suppose time will play out, but both my kids own their own homes. They both have successful careers. Actually, all three of them own their own homes now. Well, one will by the end of the month. So, you know, it's good. This is a business. When I joined, the companies recognized the top female advisor as well as the top advisor. Like there was a separation between the two. Well, we paid the same thing as you guys did. So why were we treated differently? Why wasn't it just the top advisor, be it a man or a woman?
Good point. Good point. So then this is a question you asked me to ask just so I can move myself away from any personal involvement. Do you think that this career is a good career or a bad career choice for women?
Well, I think it's an awesome career choice for women. As I said, you know, our commission scale and your commission scale are identical. You know, subject to a few minor variations just based on productivity, but it's all based on productivity. So if you do the work, the sky's the limit. But in addition to that, our career is flexible. I could stay home when my kids were sick. I could go to all their school productions. I could go to all of their, both my kids were figure skaters, so I could go to all of their figure skating. Now, I had one who ended up in an elite athlete program for figure skating, who got dropped off at school at 6:30 in the morning, got picked up at the arena at 7 o'clock at night, 5 days a week. So, you know, I had a lot of time between 6:30 in the morning and 7 at night to work, but I was always there for my kids. And there isn't any, if they were sick, it wasn't, I might have had to cancel an appointment, but I could stay home and I can work from home and I can do all of those things as required and still look after my family. So I think it's awesome. And, like I said, the commission's the commission, right? So amazing for women.
What advice would you give to somebody who's been in the business a short time or is just starting?
So, I go back to Granham. It's a horrible thing to think that I have to go back to Granham, but this business is a numbers business. So if you have, I think the stats are 25 names. If you call 25 people, 10 of them will answer the phone. And out of the 10 people who answer the phone, 3 of them will give you a meeting. And of those 3 people, 1 person will buy, and down the road, you'll get 1 more sale out of the deal. It's a numbers game. You have to put in the hours, the productivity, and do those calls. If you don't call people, whoever they are, if you don't call them, you're not going to get anywhere. And the second thing is you have to know what you're talking about. So get involved in Advocis or the IFB or whatever your choice is for that. Attend all of the face-to-face in-person meetings that you can, meet people that you could maybe do joint work with. I've found everybody in this industry is very open to sharing their ideas. Nobody's really, oh, that's my way of doing it. But I'm not going to tell you. No, secret. It's not a secret. It's not a secret. Canadians are underinsured. Canadians don't have enough money to retire on. Canadians don't have enough disability insurance. There is enough out there for everybody. You just have to make those phone calls.
Wow. And how did you feel while you were making those phone calls?
My stomach would be in knots. I'd have butterflies. I was terrified. What are these people going to say to me? And then I realized you get 1 sale out of 10 phone calls, like 10 people who answer you. 1. 9 people are saying no. Learn to accept no and move on.
And when did you move out of that phase of not having to do that anymore?
Well, I don't think I actually stopped moving out of that phase of accepting people saying no, because not everybody, I still have people who say no to me. I don't need to do it as much. I have a really good client base. They're all people that I have to, stay in touch with and communicate with on a regular basis. I get really off the wall phone calls sometimes, like spelling errors and beneficiary designations, and do we need to fix this, and do we need to redo it? But for the most part, the clients call and, it's like, well, what's going on with your kids? What's, oh, and by the way, I need to do my TFSA contribution. Or what do you think about me setting up this account for my granddaughter? Right? Like, so they call, they hear about it, like, explain this to me. So my clients actually call me, but, and I call them when there's something pressing that needs to be done, but, there's so much new out there. Lately I've been getting calls about the new Canada dental plan. And clients saying, I don't think I qualify. Why are you telling me to enroll? And it's like, well, what's your income? Like, so to a certain extent, I am out of, having to do the 25 phone calls to get 10 to get one to, but, I guess to a certain extent, but I don't think you ever get out of that. Like if I ever look at my productivity, which is like the buzzword of today, if I ever look at my productivity and go, well, what's going on? It's because I'm not doing my job, because I'm sitting at home by the pool.
So what did you run towards in your career? What did you embrace?
I loved group. I actually loved group insurance. I sort of am out of it now, but I really loved that very first case that I did in way back when, and I did a bunch more after that. But I really loved that. Hated disability underwriting, so that's probably why I don't sell as much as I probably should. I am amazed at how many young people have issues with knees and backs, and then they don't want the exclusion on their knee that they're going to need knee surgery for because they played hockey, or they got one too many concussions, or I am dumbfounded at what poor health a lot of Canadians are in. So that's probably, to a certain extent, and I love working with old people, and I really love working with old people, grandmas and grandpas.
What feels best about that?
I think because the love that they have for their families just shines through in so many ways. And people buy the things that we sell because they need them. But if they don't love somebody, they don't need us. Because why would you buy insurance if you don't have somebody that you want to give to?
What do you wish you'd embraced more?
Oh, I really wish that I had sold more life insurance. Way more. I really wish I bought more. When I was younger, it was so cheap. I really wish I had bought more and sold more.
And what do you feel you ran away from?
What did I run away from? Oh, I think I run away when things get hard. I have to kind of sit back and take stock when you get your third decline in a week and you start wondering, like, well, where am I getting these people? How am I finding these people? So yeah, I run away really far from people who lie to me.
Yes.
And I've had clients who have lied to my face and told me that there, no health issues I should be concerned about. I don't smoke. I don't do this. I don't do that. And they actually have made me jump through hoops to prove to them that the insurance company that I wanted to place the business with was the best insurance company. It had the best ratings, and only to find out that they'd had a heart attack and were diabetic, but they didn't tell me.
Huh.
And they wondered why they had a rating on their insurance.
And what do you do in those circumstances?
I fired the client. I won't have anything to do with them.
Yeah. So, Michele, as we're moving into the closing 5 minutes of our chat together today, and I guess one of the things I'd like to ask you is, what advice would you give yourself if you were starting all over again?
Oh, I think I would learn to be a better note taker. I take a lot of notes, but I find sometimes when I go back and look at those notes, I can't read them. So I think I would be a better note taker. When I have to decipher my own handwriting, it's not a good thing. We need to know, like, I mean, I always go back to my files and I go, okay, you know, what did you do last time? What did you talk about last time? What was going on with them last time that, maybe has resolved or maybe is different. So yeah, I would be a better note taker, because as I get older, I can't rely on my brain anymore. I forget more than I remember. So yeah, that would be documenting everything. And I mean, I always did, but documenting it better. Like going back and reviewing it over and over.
Thank you. Who has had the most impact on your life and why?
Oh, that's a tough one.
It's always good to end with a tough one.
That's a very tough question. Who's had the most? Oh, there's been so many people in my life. At one stage or the other. Who's had the most impact? I'm gonna have to say, like, my mom. I'm gonna say my mom. She taught me that, my mom worked, not, this is actually kind of an aside, but my mom worked in the business, like alongside my father. She has been the corporate bookkeeper for as long as I can remember. And my dad gave her that responsibility. And he might tell this story a little bit differently, but he gave her that responsibility after going out and teaching a widow how to write a check. And he did not ever want his wife to not be able to deal with her own financial situation when she was faced with the inevitable loss of him. And so my mom has always, been able to balance checkbook and manage a dual entry bookkeeping system and do all that stuff that he taught her how to do. Work the computer, be on her cell phone, whatever. She doesn't like doing that, but so she taught me that, you can do whatever you want to do. You can be whatever you want to be, whether that's being a mother that's at home with your kids or being a volunteer. She volunteered at the hospital for sick children. She actually ran what was then called the 555 shop. I don't know what it's called now, which was the gift shop at the hospital. She was on the board of governors for North York General Hospital, something that's near and dear to our family's heart. And, so she did so many things. She volunteered at the church. My mother was always busy. And so, you learn that, volunteering is good. Working hard is good. She just did it all. So I'm going to say it was my mom.
Wow, thank you for that beautiful answer. And is there anything I haven't asked you that you're burning to talk to us about?
No, I just think that, if you're an advisor, you need to be open, go to CALU. I mean, if you're get to that stage of your career, higher technical learning, always learn, always never stop, just never stop.
Thank you for a beautiful, caring, informative hour together, Michele.
Thank you, Julian.
Lawrence, over to you.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you, Michele. You know, that's very instructive. You're perfectly right. We often don't listen to people who give us good information and prefer to take it from third parties who we think are credible, but not necessarily more credible than the people who said it in the first place. You're perfectly right. Until we pay a claim, whether it's life, DI, CI, LTC, we're not really in the business. And, you know, we appreciate things more when we see how the insurance actually helps people. And you're right. Our lives change when someone close to us dies, and the closer they are, the more our lives change. And there really is a fog. And we really have to think carefully about how our future changes at that time. It's helpful to have advice and help to do it before the catastrophe hits rather than after. And you're right. Being an executor is not as easy as you think. The banks, the insurance companies, doesn't matter who they are. They need proof and evidence when, and now I understand better why a lot of clients say, look, why don't they just trust me? It happened. You know, what don't they understand about dead or disabled? So you're perfectly right. Those things are things that we have to think about. Continuing education, constantly learning. We didn't ask you about study groups, and I believe you're a member of one, at least one.
Oh.
Two. And when did you start in study groups?
Over 30 years ago.
So a while after you started, but not long.
Well,
Thank you, Michele. And thank you all for joining us today. This, as I said, is the 16th in our series. And we're moving forward. In fact, today we have added 2 more individuals to the list of speakers who will be joining us, and that is into October. And I now understand from Julian that we've added a third, who is Ross, Ross Durant, who is Michele's father. Next week, we have Sue Creasy joining us, and then David Hull and Jeffrey Hull, and Julian will be doing all of those, followed by Bill Bell. I'll be speaking with Bill, and then Julian will be back with Rob Crowder and Chris Facey. Dave Patriarch, following that, will be back with Don Forbes. Barry Pascal will be back after that on July 11th with John Hanser. And then Bob Gould, and I'll be speaking with Bob. And Dave Patriarch following that at the end of July on the 25th with Gord Cowan. We look forward to seeing you again next week at the same time, 11 a.m. Eastern time on Thursday. And again, if you have anyone who you think we should be interviewing, please let me know, and we'd be happy to speak with them. Thank you all. Thank you, Michele. Thank you, Julian. And thank you, Chris Tavarzo and Natasha Wozniak for helping us with the technical side of this. We'll see you next week.